Welcome to this lab. In the previous lab, we created external table and let's explore that table. So we are going to log into query editor v2, but before that you will be needing the IAM role. So make sure you have this IAM role copied, which is already associated with our serverless cluster. So let's go to query editor v2. So in the query editor v2, I am going to create the external schema and query the external table which is created in the previous lab. So this is the code which is already associated with this lab. So let's go and copy this code. Let's connect to the cluster first. If you are not already connected, so I'm connected to the cluster and the database I'm using is dev. So in order to access the external table, you need to create the external schema. So there's a two way to create the schema in Redshift. One is external and the second one is only create schema, which will be for the Redshift internal tables. In this lab, we are creating the external schema. And when you create the external schema, you need to give the data catalog where the metadata of the table is also located. So as we have created the database 101 database, in the last lab, we are going to use that database 101. So that's our data catalog for the external schema named external 101, which we are going to create in the Redshift dev database. As the data is in S3, we are going to use this IAM role, which is already associated with our serverless, in order to give access and the privileges it needs to access the data and give us the output back. So first, let's go ahead and create this external schema. So if you see, the output says the schema external 101 is created, and if we go and check in dev public, schema is the only one. If we refresh, we should be able to see this external schema. Right now it does not have any table in this schema, so let's go and try to query this table. It is going to fail, which I'm telling you, and let's see why it fails. So we created this external schema on this database in the glue catalog, and now we are trying to access the table ny_pub, which is created using the glue crawler in the last lab, and we are getting the error that it says this role which we have used to create this schema is not authorized to perform glue get table. So in order for this Redshift role to access the glue table, it needs to have some specific access, which is another requirement when you are using the Redshift Spectrum. Because as we know, in the Redshift Spectrum, the external tables are not actually in the Redshift cluster. The data lies in S3. So that's the reason it needs this additional access in order to pull the metadata, to get the partition details of the table, to see where the data is, and that's how we are going to read the data. So let's go and give this access to our IAM role. So I'm going to the IAM role. I'm in the IAM role console now. So go to the role, and this is the role we are talking about. So let's open this role. And if you see, so far we have given this role this many access. This is for the event bridge for the scheduling. This one is for the Redshift data access, all command full access. And if you look at this policy, which is the inline policy, it does not have any role for the glue. So it needs that additional role for the glue. We can give the specific role which is needed, but in this case we are just going to give it one of the attached policy which gives us full access on the glue. So let's search on the glue, and then we're going to give us the AWS glue service role. And when you look at the policy of this role, it says glue star S3 bucket access resources on the glue. So all the resources on the glue this role can access on the S3 also. So these are the resources it has. So let's go and attach this policy. Add permission. And now if you see, the role has this policy attached. So let's go back to the query editor v2 and run the same query again which just failed. So now the query is running because now the Redshift is trying to access this external table using the IAM role, which we just defined while creating the external schema, and it is able to give us the out. So that's how the external table can be accessed through Redshift using the external schema. When you create the external schema, it needs to know the IAM role, it needs to know the data catalog information, and it has to be mentioned as the external. So that's how the Redshift knows that this is the external schema, and all the tables which you are going to access through external schema are the external tables. So we saw this output. Let's see how many total data we have. So when you are using this one, it was using the predicate push down. It was going for that specific partition and the output was fast. But when I'm going to do the ceiling count star, it will take some time because now it has to scan through all of the partitions and then it will give me the final output. So that's where the performance consideration was coming into the picture. And it's for the any table that when you scan a good amount of data, it takes time. So it has almost good maybe 2 billion rows. So once you have created the external table, and if I refresh this one, I'm able to see one table now. So this table is actually a table created in the glue catalog, but now we are accessing it through Redshift. So if you want to see the DML of the external table, you do like show external table. For the Redshift internal table, you don't put the external. So in Redshift, whenever you are mentioning external, it is pointing to the external table. So let's do show external tables. And this is what we get for the external tables. It says this is the external table created. Data, it has the data type and the column, partitioned by whether it's a Parquet format, stored, and the location. So it is the same information we saw on the AWS glue catalog page, same information here because it's pointing to the same location. So in this lab, we created the external schema, we accessed the external table which was created using glue crawler, we looked at the DDL, not the DML, and we ran some query on the table. So let's go ahead and create this external schema, update your IAM role, run the query on the external schema, and in the next lab, we are going to create Redshift internal schema and join the data between Redshift and see the table difference and join the data which is in the Redshift internal table with the external table. So thank you very much for watching this video.